Another 3 questions video, maybe some added Puro crap at the end, perhaps, and such. So ForeverWolfFilms, close enough. Amanda thing, and yeah, the monster. Anyway, she has responded and good answers and such. I'm writing stuff down, notes and stuff, and it'll be all hieroglyphics over time, and so I should be able to morph it into some kind of new construction just because of my coded language. And so there has been value in all this, so thank you to everybody participating. I wasn't really seeking subject fodder. I mean, I really am seeking a way of framing subjects and taking some of the redundancy out of it. As much as we're creating redundancy, you create it and then you remake it, kind of a thing, and so you keep gleaning the filtering out of it. And then eventually I'd like to be able to have a room once a week or even every 2 weeks just to go over the subjects, the questions raised by people, and the interesting elements of the question inside of the question, kind of a thing. And but some of them there's a lot of subjects tied to these questions that allow some forming of a shaping. I mean, I guess there's a parallel between this philosophy thing, as I'm looking at it now, to almost the physics thing, in the sense that we have these bad habits of tradition, and tradition gives us a way of looking at something, and we don't realize that the traditional notion is just a notion. It's not necessarily good or rational or sensible. And it's almost like the reverence for our democracy is silly, because it's an outhouse. It's a shit box. It's a crap of a democracy. You wouldn't live in it. You wouldn't even shit in it. It's, there's outhouses you wouldn't shit in, right? I mean, I knew of outhouses just because, I lived when, especially the national parks, visited a lot of the national parks, and, they were doing the nature thing. And so the toilets were all outhouses. And, yeah, some, at the rest stops on the roads, you wouldn't shit in them. I mean, they were just so bad. Just hard, they shouldn't even allow children. It should be prohibited for a child to do that, to go into an outhouse and just what? I mean, even visually, there should be some sort of device so you can't actually see what's in the hole, because it just, it'll hurt. It's not really on the subject. It's not one of the subjects, but it's happens that way. One thought leads to blah 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 blah. So anyway, this whole construction of even the way we debate or we converse, or the whole political discourse, I mean, all these rules have been defined by these traditions, and I think they're just all shit. Just like most of physics is shit. It's based on stupid, idiotic, wrong choices. Push, pull. Push is the rational choice. They choose pull, the irrational choice. Wave, particle. Rational choice, particle. Irrational choice. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to make a physics video, but I mean, it's just getting so obvious how, that this is part of a mythology, and it's part of a thing that people it's a traditionology. Traditionology? Maybe I need a word for this. Tradition that just blinds us to the idea. And so I'm just thinking of it in terms of this idea of a trial. Ideas really should be put on trial, hard trial, and tested. And this whole idea of having these conversations are for that purpose of coming up with a resolution, a solution. And some people are just talking because they feel like talking, because they actually do just like the sound of their voice or something, or they want to feel like they're a personality on YouTube or some other kind of crap. And there's no ambition to actually get the job done. And I want to get the job done. I don't want to just be a talker. And so I'm always trying to construct a method of conversation and thinking and organization, communication with people to try to get somewhere. And obviously you can't get it with just people who are trolls, and so much of YouTube is just a community of trolls. The biggest community on YouTube are the troll community. I don't pay too much attention to any of this shit. I just like to shit on people's heads because it's fun. It beats going to the outhouse. Or something like that. So it's about a design, a system, all this kind of stuff, and you can just see how these systems are just so dysfunctional, and even the way we converse is so such bullshit. Oh, every opinion counts and blah blah. No, 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 no. There's people who are just who will inevitably turn every conversation to their pet conversation. And you know, they can never stay on the subject, and blah blah blah. And there's rules of this, and I'm just sort of looking for those rules, looking for a way of finding whatever rationality, any capacity to say some words that'll ring true logically to somebody, even the trolls. Just a little hint of an idea that, oh wait a minute, maybe there is more at stake. Maybe there is some reason to think we should make it matter. If it doesn't matter, we should make it matter. Yeah. So anyway, so I wasn't attempting to find subjects, but it is interesting just how this is clarifying some subjects for me in a way that is interesting, just because it's fodder for subjects that I really wasn't short of, but they're there, and it might be a worthy platform. But anyway, so enough of that crap. So anyway, so of course Amanda agrees on most of this stuff, but I like the way she was she used the metaphor of molding clay for a couple of the subjects, and most importantly this one of imposition, where she didn't really take it where I was going, which is just the overt fact that so much of what we do for our own convenience. Jaywalking or something. You know, where we're for our convenience, you know, we will put a driver at risk, and putting the driver at risk means putting some child on the street at risk or something. You know, somebody drives off the road and they could kill somebody because they were avoiding us because we were jaywalking, that kind of thing. All these little things that we do in our lives where we compromise somebody else's interest for our self-interest, I guess is where I was trying to head, and that this is sort of a nasty bit of existence. And it's one of those questions where how bad does it have to get before you'll say it's too bad? Again, I could ask, how many baby lions, little lion cubs, do I have to stick a knife in right in front of your eyes? Just sit here, right here. You know, that's what nature's doing right now. Sticking a big dagger in their fucking guts every day. How many per adult lion? for the adult lion shagging in the brush, you know, getting some pussy. How many bebes is it okay to kill? You know, these are real questions in my opinion, and they're hard answers. And this whole problem of our imposition is, I mean, how many people, you know, I'm sure there's jaywalkers have murdered people. It's happened. How many murders is okay? I mean, apparently where we can accept an awful lot. Okay, we live in a world where a lot of people get ruined every day. And there's no 9/11 memorial to people ruined by jaywalkers. There's no 9/11 memorial to people ruined by drunk drivers. None. I mean, they wipe out 20 times as many people, or at least 10 times as many people every year as 9/11. There's no memorial anywhere. There's no museums. There's no Holocaust, you know, alcoholic Holocaust museum. That's what I mean by this. We have an irrational perspective. We have an irrational theater that we're presenting this play of our philosophy in, because it doesn't, it's irrational. It doesn't make any sense. The priorities are insanely stupid. And that's the context of all the conversation, is some sort of reverence for these insane ways of looking at it. Fighting for fetuses and such. I mean, just silly. Insanely silly. But somehow it's traditional. You have to have this traditional reverence for fetuses. Feti. Feti are special. These special rights. Anyway. So this is what I mean. There's billions and billions of subjects. Ugh, my. How to deal with them all properly. So anyway. But I did like the, because Amanda's answer sort of got into the whole idea of motivations like revenge and legitimacies of deterrence, and all kinds of different ways of looking at how we interact with each other and what should be acceptable and unacceptable and that kind of stuff. So that was good. Alright, so anyway, to her questions. Alright, let's see. Should people just euthanize their pets immediately? Is keeping them alive for any amount of time justifiable? Is there an ethical imperative to euthanize immediately? I think there is. This is exactly my point. So your question is exactly the kind of question that is a recomposition of the subject, which is this imposition argument. Pets are gratifying a self-interest. People find them charming company and comforting and distracting, maybe. And it gives them something to devote their attention to, something they can control, something they can help, something they can do good for, something they can get gratification because it's a playable game. The relationship between owner and pet is a very playable game in terms of making you feel like you have some power to help, to comfort, to make something happy. It's easy. Something just scratch its little head and it's happy. Give it some food and it's happy. It's just made easy. It's life made easy. But is the life, and this is worth imposing? Is it a proper slave? How many pets end up being obliged to live way past when they should have been humanely put to sleep? I've seen so many people do this. They just wait too long, and the animals are horribly sick, and it's cruel. And it's tough, though. It's a very difficult decision. So I understand why that happens. That's why I'm saying I'm more about preventing the relationship than trying to fix the relationship. Once you're in the addictive relationship, you can't fix it. Can't fix the fact that there's a no-win. Once you're stuck in it, once you're in the lifeboat, there's really no winning. Okay, yeah, you can survive lifeboat, but you won't survive it feeling good, because what it'll take to survive is going to be ugly and unpleasant. And the same thing is true in these relationships with animals. And I would say even for the human owner, the selfish person, for many of them, for me anyway, it has been a little murders in a sense. It was never by choice, except when I was a kid. I did have dogs on purpose. I mean, by my own desire, but later in life I didn't want pets, and it just happened that I just got stuck with the responsibility of feeding, feral, homeless animals. And once they're dependent, you're obligated, kind of, right? I mean, because they're going to keep showing up. You feed them once, they're going to show up again, and then instead of going to hunt for food, they're going to be waiting at the vending machine, and you're going to kill them if you don't feed them. In a way, you're going to degrade their capacity to find comfort. So it's a terrible commitment. and then the death process and the whole thing, the separation anxiety or whatever you want to call it. I've been harmed more by the loss of some of my pet friends than by some losing people that I should have somehow felt some kind of loss, and it just wasn't as big a loss because frankly I didn't spend as much time with them, and they weren't as big a part of my life. And so I'm not the argument almost is, you could almost argue for the sake of human beings' own welfare, for the ones who really do care for their pets, you're probably doing them a favor by saying don't get the addiction, don't take that first hit of heroin. That's going to take more than one, but anyway, don't do it because over time it will kill you. I mean, it'll eat at you. Slowly, the worm will consume so much of your bliss, and you'll have nothing but a bunch of Holocaust stories. Just horrible look into the hole in the outhouse stories. I mean, they're just going to be these ugly images. And this happens with people. You watch, if you love somebody, watch somebody die of Alzheimer's or something, and you don't get over it. It's just a stain on your brain and a stain on your relationship to that person. The joy of the entire pet relationship is destroyed because you'll never get the image of those last days out of your head, and they'll be glued right to the dog or cat. They're glued right to it. The last 2 days become the strongest memory, and you just never can just see the dog without that stupid fucking image glued on top of it. I'm just saying this is how it happens for me. I'm not saying all people are like that, but I just mean it just seems to me that's what happens. It's so bad that you can't ignore it. It just ends up getting stuck to the whole story, and it ruins a perfectly good fairy tale, so to speak. But anyway, so yeah, it's a great question. It's a subject I'm really interested in now, just because I've had to do some work trying to get some get homes for feral kittens, and it's really impossible. And they do these insane things where they do the surgery on them and then throw them back on the street, and it's just so fucking stupid. And it really deserves more attention, because all of this is a consequence of this harmless pet ownership, and it's just not harmless. Alright, so enough of that. So my answer is yes, that the right thing to do, this is, again, it's so personally uncomfortable to do. It's so the right thing for me to do is to I did there was a couple of cats I actually did have put down when they were perfectly healthy, because I was strong enough. So there's times when you have the strength to do it, but it's really hard to do emotionally to a cat, because you do feel like you're robbing it one more meal and one more happy nap. But the real point is there's no point in letting it go bad. There's no point in waiting for the bad, because the bad might be so bad and you won't be able to do anything about it then. And there's nothing about living that is that important, especially to a cat. I mean, if it dies in its sleep, what has it really lost? Nothing. So it's just silly to do all this imposing. I'm saying it's silly that as a serious philosophical statement, we should be able to acknowledge that it's mostly just our psychology that makes this stuff happen, and that acknowledging that might in the future give us the capacity, to act better, to act knowing that the truth really should in the end win. And it's not going to win if we keep whitewashing the truth with our psychological dependencies and weaknesses. Alright. If a perfect, full immersion virtual reality is something I thought about this just the other day, because I was thinking about my first question in the context of a virtual reality, because somebody else mentioned that. And you know, because virtual reality makes a whole lot less sense to me too without kind of sex. Just because I know you don't have sex when you're playing a video game or something, but again, it's sort of related because the whole contest thing, the whole struggle, the whole fight thing is just, in my opinion, is so related to the idea that you're going to Disney World. And if you weren't going to Disney World, you know, if you're not going to get the pussy in the end, just even the idea that you earned it, like I said, just the idea that now I'm worthy of it, even if I don't get it, but I'm worthy of it, is such a controlling mechanism. And yeah, it'd certainly be less of a scenario. Okay, I mean, I can imagine playing golf every day, but if I don't, you know, if I just go to sleep, wake up, play golf again, you know what I mean? It's a little bit like sex, but it's not sex. So yeah, it diminishes the story, no doubt. But anyway, continuing. Full immersion virtual reality could be achieved tomorrow. Would you still fight for antinatalism? Well, I'm always going to fight for it as long as there's something outside of virtual reality. So yes, if it's obligatory that everybody get into the virtual reality, that's fine with me, if that'll make it politically viable. But again, it's about creating new persons. So if you ask me, would you create new psychologies to be placed into virtual reality, where you have to create character in them, you know, where you have to make them to know the value of the beauty, they have to know the preciousness, like the rose has to wilt and die for somebody to know they have to appreciate it, why it exists. You know, love, you got to kind of be, you have to have a few feelings hurt before you can possibly really appreciate it when it goes right. It's like you have to know what wrong is before you can know what right is. And that whole thing, why would I impose on somebody character building? Because character building is going to be uncomfortable. I would argue extremely painful, but I'm just going to say uncomfortable, to placate people who can't accept the truth that it's extremely painful. If you haven't had pain in your life, you don't have character. Okay, even if by comparison it took longer to achieve. Well, like I said, virtual reality is a controlled reality, which means that yes, you can take all the impositional harms out of the game. So yes, it just fixes so much. So perfectly good temporary solution, perfectly good permanent solution. I'm just not. I'd rather just do without. I'd rather just say, look, we know it's just addiction. I'm just playing out my ego in virtual reality. It just, you know, all you have to do is cut off one of my legs in virtual reality, or, you know, disfigure me in some way, change me in some way, and I won't want to play. I only want to play virtual reality as Gary. I don't think I want to play it as somebody else. Are there any pieces of art, communication, that you think deserve to be destroyed? Well, I think there's lots of art that's like just hate art. Okay, like image of Abraham Lincoln, you know, with big lips, and you know, the whole eating the watermelon or something. I mean, that kind of just gross art. That sucks. Yeah. So, does it deserve to be destroyed? I'd say it deserves it, just because it's motivated by nothing but hate and pettiness, and yeah, and I'd argue there's just no, it has no value, and forgotten because it's so offensive. So yeah, but I wouldn't make a law out of it. Okay, I'm saying, does it deserve it? Yes. Would I see that it gets what it deserves? No. I just say that we should not allow it to be painted on the side of a building so everybody has to see it, like a swastika or something. We would recognize that, yeah, okay, you can like the swastika. I like it. It's nice and square, and I love the image of it, but I know that it's a grotesque image to the people who are abused by it. So I would certainly not say, go ahead, fly the swastika flag. You know, I'd say, fuck that. So if you want to put one somewhere for a purpose that people have to go and open a door and deliberately look at it, fine. But if you're going to take the art and shove it in people's faces, it's a different story. Or should all work have to be saved for its ability to act as some kind of mirror and teacher? Yeah, I don't think it needs to be. It's, I think archiving and saving stuff, that valuable stuff that will get just run over by time. You know, the tumbleweeds will roll over it, knock it over or something. I think that stuff should be. There's lots of stuff worth saving. Whether everything needs to be saved, no, I don't think so. Showing us the worst of the human race. Well, the worst is just so. There's so much of it that I don't think we have a problem where we need to preserve the big mountain of worst somewhere, because it's everywhere. You'll probably find some of it in the YouTube comment section on your own video. The worst of humanity, the crud, the glib, useless sacks of blubbery shit is everywhere. So anyway, thank you very much and such. So I think I'll play a little bit of a Piro video. Might have a little bit of relevance, and but yeah, good questions, and you know, yes, eventually I'll put this together, I guess, but eventually, yes, I will. I'll have one of my people do it. But anyway, working on it. But you know, it's so, you know, I make a lot of excuses, but you know, I'm tired. Yeah, this is hard. Toothache. Anyway, all right. So the Piro. You know, I can't play all of his videos because, you know, he makes these undisciplined, too many subject videos. I don't want to listen to all this crap. You know, I like subjects. And I like to pick what I watch based on the subject of the video, not who's making the video. So, you know, this isn't a style I can much tolerate. But anyway, in here, I was just jumping through, and he just did a little bit of a Mendham rant here that I just found the same, you know, it's the same. It's just such cheap rhetoric, and yeah, just shows the man to be what he is, useless. Yeah.
Make life less interesting, ultimately less valuable.
Blah blah blah. Yeah, I guess that has something to do with you have to be able to appreciate the bark on the tree, or you know, something. I don't know. I know there was something here. I didn't see this dead part.
Yeah, I'm sure Mendham will try to. But, you know, the thing about Mendham is his...
So he's responding to comments without even reading the comment, which is really irritating. Nobody can see those comments, Piro. You know, they're gone. Nobody can go back and find them and say, oh, what's he responding to? Nope. No.
Very easy to say, oh, therefore you have condemned me to relive my life again as the person I already was, and now...
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you're condemning another person to live a similarly dissatisfactory life, a life they won't appreciate having been imposed on them. They won't appreciate the arrogance and the obnoxiousness of the asshole who told them, oh yeah, you'll find what I find interesting, and you'll find life just so super and cool. And we know the worst of it is that I'm living one of the okay scenarios. There'll be people that are horribly burned up. Kids will be, you know, shot. They'll have their legs blown off by landmines and live short and unpleasant lives. They'll be born retarded. All those things will continue to happen by your will.
My life is your fault, which is basically how he always puts this stuff. But he also is like, eh.
Yeah, well, it's your will. You know, I wish his microphone was better. I can't really turn the volume up because it gets all staticky.
Hey, if you had a world of Nazis killing Jews and they're all sad, the Nazis, obviously if you had the same world and those Nazis were happy that would be better.
Yeah, well, I made the argument that I've often made, and so you think it's illogical for me to say that if deterrence no longer worked, that is, if the prisoners in prison didn't prevent more crime, that you would keep punishing them, that you would see some value in punishing them. So, you defend that. Go ahead and defend. That sounds like God. So again, my accusation that you're a religious kook, you're an Old Testament kook to boot. Because you think there's some purpose in punishing people for being stupid, and that's what they are, they're stupid. You don't think Nazis were just stupid? It's stupid, okay? There's no evil germ. Maybe you believe there's evil germs, and they possess people, and then they're evil. No, they're evil because they're stupid. And so if you can't change anything, if there's no change in the outcome, and the only difference is the Nazis are happy or the Nazis are sad, and that's the only change. So you've just made more people sad. So like I said, if I have a prison full of suffering prisoners, and they're not suffering to prevent any crime, to prevent a single child from being molested, from a single harm coming to anything in the future, you'd sit there and torture them. So if we found out a meteor's heading for Earth, it's going to definitely blow the Earth up, life on Earth is going to end, you would just sit there and still torture them. You wouldn't give them cake and ice cream and all kinds of fun stuff and just say, hey, have a party, fellas. You'd just sit there and say, no, we have to, right to the very end, chain them to the cots and whip them with the rubber hose. Yeah, okay, well that's what you're defending, you dipshit. So again, pervert my comment into some sort of generous. Like somehow I'm being mean to something, when I'm obviously not saying it because I like Nazis. I'm saying it about every single thing in the world, every single cause, every single everything. The same standard would be applied. That there's just no point in torturing things when nothing productive will be gained from it.
And I'm being sad. I mean, because the Jews are getting killed either way. Well, I know. See, plus you have a guy that says,
Okay, so superficial coverage of the subject. Just didn't even say anything, and now he's changing the subject. Does this all the time. Short shrift, mocking, and then change the subject. Pussy bullshit.
Kill a woman that tried to not have an abortion if she got pregnant by me, and
right, that wasn't the subject either. So taken out of context. So look, the context was contracts and that they sort of have to mean something, and that I made a point about the fact that I never had sex with a woman without this understanding. That you're going to have an abortion if something goes wrong, right? I mean, we're going to do the double condom thing, we're going to do the pill thing, we'll do whatever we can to stop you from getting pregnant. But you do understand that if you get pregnant, you're having an abortion. And this is something done eye to eye, penis to vagina. There can't be a more personal contract written in any kind of, contracts written in semen, and vaginal juices. I'd say they're even stronger than ones written in blood. That's about as intimate and as real as you can get, is those kind of things between people. That's something that personal. That's not just shaking hands. All right, sticking penis in vagina, that's not like shaking hands. That's a lot more intimate. And if you can't trust people under that circumstance, if you say it's okay to break that contract, that's okay. People can go ahead and break a contract that fundamental, where it's eye to eye, there's no doubt about what's being stated, there's no disagreement about what you're committing to, none, and you're allowed to break the contract. You can't even defend contracts under that circumstance. And that's why you're a menace to civilization. Because the only thing that makes civilization work is that you have to defend contract. You have to. I mean, there's no, we can have no confidence, we can have no commitment if you're not going to be able to take anybody's word for anything ever. And if you can't do it under the most, like I said, the most ironcladness, if those personal commitments aren't, if you're not obliged to satisfy those, then how can any of the other social commitments mean anything at all?
And fuck immigrants in their situation. That's their...
Okay, again, so this is his paraphrase of my position. My position is that the world is broken, okay, in the sense that we've allowed this capitalist monster to go out and, you know, like termites, kidnap the ants and control them. And it's a malicious, evil thing. And I've made every video I've ever made on the subject of economics and the structure of society. I've never, ever, ever declined to defend workers and their rights to what they're entitled to. The people who earned it should be controlling it, not the people who own it. And, you know, so this perversion of my argument that somehow, because I don't believe you can fix it from America, inside of America, by creating a fake society inside of America where we go back to horses and buggies or something and still use our iPhone. You know, can't have it that way.
Fuck a problem. So, yeah, it's really easy for him to use his get out of guilt-free card.
Get out of guilt-free card how? How is it a get out of guilt-free card? I'd only say my only defense of get out of free guilt card is that I've never voted for it, okay? I've never voted for exploitation. I've never voted for capitalist ownership. I've never voted for inheritance rights. I've never argued for them. So yes, my only cleanness is that at least I haven't advocated for the wrong side where you have. You'll defend inheritance. You'll defend capitalism.
And I've given a lot of credit to these ideas. And I've never thought of myself as pro-natalist all these years that I've been called it, because I would actually advise to people, no, you know, don't have kids. When I was young...
Right, so don't do as I would do as I say, don't do as I say, do as I don't do, and don't say. Or something like that. I mean, it just seems like you're just evading the point, that you're either for it or against it. And again, just this stupid, you wouldn't have this duality problem, this problem of wishy-washiness if the subject was rape. Your opinion on rape wouldn't be, oh yeah, well I'm not going to rape, but you can go ahead and do it. I mean, it's just it's a bullshit evasion of just being able to state, well, if it's wrong for me to do it recklessly, why is it right for somebody else to do it recklessly? If I know I was reckless, I was ill-informed, I made ignorant decisions, I made compulsively addictive decisions, why would you just say, but they have a right to learn like I did, so go ahead, drink and drive, kill somebody and go to prison, and then learn to be against drinking and driving? Why would you do that? Why would you say, go ahead, learn the hard way? You know, bury a couple of kids and you know, learn the hard way.
There was still, at least the culture I was from, not so much of the urban thing, you know, where of course you had to get married. If you didn't, you were weird. Of course you were going to have kids, or else that was weird.
It's not really the subject. The subject is the whole idea that you're competent to decide for another consciousness, that you say the world's not only good enough, life is fundamentally good enough, and I can fix it if it goes wrong. That arrogance, you should concede, is not rationally defensible. That arrogance is just based on biology and ego and lots of wants and desires, and it has nothing to do with the right or wrong answer. Is rape okay? No, it's not okay. And what you're doing when you're having kids is you're raping them for your own gratification. You don't have them to fix the world. You don't have them to do any of this crap you talk about like it's a possibility. I had them because I thought they were going to be Gandhi. And then you know that Gandhi's an asshole anyway. So why would you even want them to be Gandhi? Because he's going to fail.
And so, I mean, I've been a person of like, no, it's not. You know, and they've been in the city finding there's a tradition of not everybody does get married. Not everybody pursues the...
Well, look, this is the argument that most people, I keep saying it because people keep thinking, no, you'll never stop people. Most people, no, everybody has to, everybody And it's this tiny minority of people that are having all the kids. Small percentage. So it's almost like 70%. It would be funny if there was 70% of the people were vegetarian and people were still arguing, you'll never convince people to give up meat. They can't give up meat. No one will ever give up meat. They can't ever do it. You can't stop it. That would be kind of a ludicrous argument to make, right? But that's how ludicrous this argument is. Anybody defending the current circumstances just defending the dumbest and the stupidest people on earth. Because they're the only ones doing it. They're the only ones forcing human beings to continue to exist. If it wasn't for the dumbest people on earth, the human race would go extinct by choice, by willful behavior. Without me even saying the word antinatalism, without me even saying don't have kids, without me even saying it's cruel. They could figure it out on their own, not to have them for other reasons maybe, but for the point is they'd figure it out on their own, just like some people figure out not to eat meat for health reasons. The truth is, the compulsion isn't that strong. The need isn't unsatiable. The need is completely arbitrary and can be disposed of quite easily by the majority of people on earth. Even Catholics can figure out how not to have another kid. They figure out what contraception is, and they figure out how to do the right crossy thing, before they put the condom on.
Those traditional things, in the city, there's more roles available to people, more identity, so to speak, more individuality. Even if some of the culture did judge you, there's a history of people,
Who the fuck cares? I mean, this has nothing to do with the subject of whether it's right or wrong to impose, to be a Frankenstein and to do your little monster creation. Because your monsters by statistical facts. If you're at all informed, your monster's not likely to be a great human being. It's going to be at best one of these average, mediocre, turdy-looking things, and then it's quite possibly is going to be a disgusting, horrible, mass-murdering pedophile.
Following along with that.
Or it might just get cancer when it's 5 years old.
And I felt, I would advise people to think twice, to wait, but it's pro-choice. But,
Right, you're pro-choice on rape. Again, the fact that you don't see any element of this conversation, the important part of the conversation with is how do you justify the arrogance of deciding for something else? Merely because nature gives you the ability, right? So if nature gave me the ability to shoot acid out of my forehead and melt people, and it's clearly what it was intended for, it is intended to shoot and melt. And you made arguments saying, well, you shouldn't use your melting device. Nature gave it to me. Why the fuck shouldn't I?
No, I don't believe every single person should go ahead and reproduce. And I don't think we should over-reproduce. And I think it's irresponsible to over-reproduce. And there's various things that limit natalism. But
but you'll never do anything to stop it. So again, what's the point? I don't think they should do it, but I'm not going to stop them, especially with rhetoric, the saying no. I'll never say those words. No, I'm not going to subsidize it. No, I'm going to do whatever I can to encourage different behavior.
Should we keep the progeny so that there's human beings here in 1,000 years to hopefully do better than us and make...
Yeah, so to hopefully keep talking about the nest they're never going to build before they fart the eggs, right? I mean, there's some traditions that you just configure that humans aren't going to live past, and we've just made it so obvious. I mean, the fact that we have this huge deficit, we still have people talking about how we have to have more kids so they can go to work to pay the people to wipe my ass, to pay people, $7.50 an hour to wipe my ass when I'm old and insane. I mean, it's the politics is disgusting. And you're talking about this, in 1,000 years we're going to be living in blissitopia with these same selfish organisms. No, we're gonna be living in some sort of dysfunctional world no matter who wins. I mean, Fanny Pacquiao is going to be just as disgusting as AK-47.
The world even more interesting to be in than it is automatically. Yeah. Well,
this whole interesting thing is just such a wow, What a vaporous concept. Life is interesting because it has corners and shapes. And ooh, look at that shape. And ooh, look at that. And look at, oh, shapes. Interesting. Pathetic. I guess that's enough.
What do the child prostitutes find pleasure in?
Okay. Yeah, why we can live without child prostitution. Well, let's just hear how he glibly defends it, no doubt.
I don't know what your point is, John.
His point is that there's all kinds of harm and disgusting pain and misery and suffering that goes on in the world, and how much of it is okay with you. Apparently this amount is okay, and we can just pile on some more. I mean, how bad does it have to get before you say no mas? How many lion cubs do I have to stick the knife in? Why don't you just give me a fucking number? So the number right now is 10. So 10 lion cubs get the knife. Okay, now. So what number, how bad does it have to get before you say, no more lions. Let's not bother with lions. There's too many cubs die to have lions. So how many child prostitutes have to be created? How many kids have to die by the hands of molesting pedophiles? How many kids have to die of cancer? How many kids have to die of drug overdoses? How many kids have to commit suicide? How bad does it have to fucking get? How many knives and how many cubs, human cubs, have to be plunged before you say no fucking mas? Can you answer the fucking question? Okay. But yeah, there won't be an answer because obviously people have already forgotten World War I, World War II, the Civil War. They've forgotten all of the horrible and brutal deaths to the brightest, the youngest, the brightest, the bestest. Right? We've slaughtered the best of the human race in the most disgusting ways possible. So a bunch of the fakers and the posers can walk around with their badges of honor. I mean, this is just such a disgusting game we're playing. This being human is so fucking humiliating. The humiliation alone should be enough to make you sour on this puke of a life as human. Alright. But what can you expect from a religious kook in every respect? A nature lover and a physical reality hater. Alright, enough said. Until next time, and such.